Hello, fourth grade, and welcome to lesson 2 of chapter 5. We're going to focus on the impact that the arrival of the Spanish had on the southwestern region of the United States. In this lesson, you're going to use your investigative skills to explore the impact that the arrival of the Spanish had on the southwest region of the United States. We're going to talk about the arrival of the Spanish, and talking about it will help you learn more about the history of the Southwest. Now here on the right side, we have a picture of a map, and here we have some Spanish conquistadors who arrived in the Southwest, explored the land, and searched for gold. So here you can see some of these are pieces of gold coins, remnants that are left over. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first lesson pages and go over the instructions in our blue bars. Look at the title. What does it suggest the text will be about? Circle words or phrases that you don't know. Underline key details that help you understand who were the conquistadors. Why did the Spanish conquistadors come to the Americas? How did Cortez's goal change once he arrived in North America? Then we're going to reread, and we're going to focus on how does the map help you understand the text. Underline the names of important places in the text that are shown in the map. The establishment of New Spain. When Christopher Columbus sailed across the Atlantic, he hoped to find a new sea route to Asia. Instead, he found lands and people that he had not expected to find. Other Spanish explorers, called conquistadors, soon followed Columbus across the ocean. These conquistadors were Spanish soldiers who took the land that they came across by force. They claimed these lands for Spain. One of these conquistadors was Hernán Cortés. Cortés knew about the land Columbus had found. Cortés left Spain in 1504 and sailed to the Western Hemisphere to explore the territory himself. Cortés hoped to find gold. Cortés reached the city of Tenochtitlan in November 1519. The city was the capital of the Aztec Empire. The ruler of the Aztec people was Montezuma II. He greeted Cortés with presents. Eventually, Cortés defeated the Aztec and took possession of their land. The land of the Aztec and other nearby territories captured by the Spanish became the colony of New Spain. Let's take a look at our graphic organizers on the following pages. So in this section, we're going to focus on summarizing. Now, when you summarize a text, you're identifying the main ideas and the supporting details, and you're going to use them to give a brief statement of the text's message. So you're going to read the text and look for the main ideas, reread the text again and look for details that support those ideas, and ask yourself questions such as, how can I restate what the author wants to know? Why does this matter? And when you're writing a summary, you're basically saying in your own words, in just a couple sentences, what all of the text was about. So the first main idea, or the main idea that we're going to focus on here, is the establishment of New Spain. Now we're going to go back and think about our reading and see what we talked about or what we read about that talks about the establishment of New Spain. So the first detail we can put was that Cortés left Spain in 1504 and he sailed to the Western Hemisphere to explore the territory himself. And then in 1519, he defeated the Aztecs and took possession of their land. So to summarize that, we can say all of that kind of put together a little bit better and say that the Spanish explorer Cortés took possession of the land in North America that later became known as New Spain. So we're going to do something very similar for the following page. They gave us the main idea, and we're going to add in the details, and then we're going to summarize all of those things together. So our first main idea is the Spanish mission system. So we're going to write 2 things that we learned about the Spanish mission system. Then the impact of the missions on Native Americans. So what are 2 ways that those missions affected or changed the lives of Native Americans? And then we're going to talk about the Rancho lifestyle and write 2 details about that, and then summarize it and put it all together in our summary box. What impact did the arrival of the Spanish have on the Southwest? Dreams of gold. Francisco Vázquez de Coronado was born in Spain in about 1510. In 1535, Coronado traveled from Spain to New Spain, what we now call Mexico today. Coronado became a leader of one of the regions in New Spain. Coronado had heard reports that there were 7 cities of gold in the north. In 1540, Coronado led an expedition to find these golden cities. The expedition traveled north into the area of what is now the Southwest. Coronado and his crew traveled through the area of the modern states of Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma. The expedition reached what today we call Kansas before turning around. On this expedition, a group of Coronado's explorers became the first Europeans to see the Grand Canyon. In each town he visited, Coronado failed to find the golden cities that he had set out to find. Coronado and his explorers battled Native Americans in several places. Coronado's men were often better armed than the Native Americans. As a result, Coronado's men often defeated the Native Americans. In 1542, Coronado returned to New Spain to give a disappointing report on the findings of his trip. Officials declared the expedition to be a failure. Officials even charged Coronado for his bad behavior on his trip, but he was found innocent of committing any crimes. Coronado was removed as the leader of the region of New Spain. Spanish explorers such as Francisco Coronado searched the Southwest hoping to find the 7 cities of gold. Now up here we've got a timeline. 1534, Cabeza de Vaca began his travels across Texas and the Southwest. 1540, Francisco Coronado began his expedition through the Southwest. 1598, Juan de Oñate establishes the colony of New Mexico for Spain. 1680, Pueblo people revolt against the Spanish rule in New Mexico, and 1687, Father Eusebio Quino arrives in Arizona to build missions. The Spanish mission system. After exploring the Southwest, Spain claimed it as New Spain and established more permanent settlements. The missions were settlements that spread the Spanish Empire and its religion. Spanish established some missions in Florida, but most extended from Texas to California. There were 3 key parts to each mission system. The mission itself was a place to worship and educate people. The presidio was a fort with soldiers to protect the mission and enforce its rules. The town and fields around the mission grew food and kept it supplied. The heart of the mission was the church. Mission priests wanted to convert Native Americans, but also wanted them to work for the mission. Native Americans did not often have a choice when they were forced to convert and labor for the missions. Soldiers often fought with the Native Americans. European diseases such as smallpox sickened and killed thousands of Native American people. Many Native Americans rebelled against the missions by running away or organizing attacks. Missionaries, Spanish soldiers, and Native Americans lived and worked in missions. So the first thing we can talk about back on our graphic organizer, we're talking about the Spanish mission system. The first detail we can mention is that they established these settlements in new areas. And the second detail we can put in is that soldiers sometimes attacked the Native Americans to force them to convert and to work and live in the missions. San Miguel Mission. Today, there is still evidence of the Spanish missions throughout the Southwest. There are buildings left from that time period. Many grew into thriving cities such as San Antonio, Texas, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. Santa Fe is one of the oldest cities in the United States. It was built on the site of an old Pueblo village. When Coronado passed through the area in 1540, he claimed it for Spain. As more Spanish people settled in the area, Santa Fe was established as the capital of New Spain in 1610. That was a year after settlers first arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, and 10 years before English settlers landed at Plymouth. The San Miguel Mission was founded that same year. Native Americans, under the direction of Spanish priests, built the San Miguel Chapel. The chapel is the oldest church in the continental United States. About 10,000 Native Americans lived in the area around Santa Fe. Only a small group of Native Americans, soldiers, and laborers lived in the mission itself. Today, you can visit the San Miguel Mission in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Pueblo Revolt. Native Americans became tired of being treated poorly and wanted to return to their way of living before the Spanish arrived. There was often fighting between the Spanish settlers and the Native Americans. In 1680, the Pueblo people rebelled at the San Miguel Mission. The Pueblos wanted the Spanish off of their land. A Pueblo named Pope led an attack on the Spanish in Santa Fe. Almost all Pueblos in the area joined Pope in the attack. Spanish settlers went to San Miguel Chapel for safety. However, the rebels set the chapel's roof on fire during the fighting. The building was destroyed. The Pueblos set fire to much of the city, forcing many settlers out of Santa Fe. The Spanish fought and won back Santa Fe by force in 1692. San Miguel Chapel was rebuilt and Santa Fe continued to grow, but fighting with the Native Americans also continued. Mission soldiers were in charge of protecting and enforcing the mission's rules. This overhead view shows the different parts of a mission. So you have the living areas over here, the church area, the courtyard, the well for water, and where they would bring in hay and things from the fields. Now, when we want to talk about the second main idea, the impact of missions on Native Americans' lives, for our first detail, we can put in that in 1680, the Pueblo Revolt took place in New Mexico, and that the Pueblo people wanted to return to their old way of life, and they wanted the Spanish off of their land. So those are the two details we can put in this section. Learning to cooperate. Not all the Spanish missionaries caused strife and conflict with the Native Americans. Eusebio Francisco Kino was one missionary priest who opposed the Spanish missions enslaving Native Americans. This made him stand out from the other missionaries. He worked to stop the fighting between Spanish settlers and Native Americans. Kino's influence was felt through many missions he established, starting with the first mission in 1687. As part of his travels, he became skilled at making accurate and descriptive maps. Some remained the best maps of the area for more than 150 years. Kino brought cattle and fruit trees from Europe. He taught Native Americans a new skill of raising cattle. In their words, I spoke to the Indians of the word of God, and on a map of the world pointed out to them the lands, the rivers, and the seas over which we missionaries had come from afar to bring them the saving knowledge of our holy faith. The Mexican War for Independence. For 300 years, the Spanish government ruled New Spain. The Europeans born in Spain were favored, holding the top offices in the churches and government of New Spain. People born in New Spain were considered lower class and had fewer chances to earn money. Many Native Americans suffered the most under Spanish rule. It was even illegal for them to hold some jobs. Spain, in order to protect its economy, also controlled what the colonists could trade. In 1810, a priest named Miguel Hidalgo made an inspirational speech to tell people of Dolores, a small town in New Spain. Hidalgo called for a rebellion to demand equality. Many people born in New Spain decided to follow that call and fight for independence from Spain. Hidalgo led an army against the Spanish. In 1811, Hidalgo was caught and executed. Jose Maria Morelos, also a priest, took over as the leader. In 1820, a rebellion took place in Spain that changed the Spanish government. This helped Mexico finally succeed in winning its independence in 1821. In this mural, called The Cry of Dolores, Father Miguel Hidalgo urges Mexicans to fight for independence. The rise of ranchos. After gaining independence, the Mexican government passed a law in 1833 that ended missions. The government gave Mexicans the mission lands to turn into ranchos or ranches. Ranchos were huge pieces of land to raise cattle and sheep. Families who owned ranchos lived there with as many as 100 workers. Often the rancho workers were Native Americans. Both friends and strangers would be treated as family when visiting a rancho. Celebrations were important on ranchos. A fiesta, the Spanish word for party, could last for up to 5 days and include the neighbors. People wore colorful clothing, men often played guitars, and people would dance. Children did not go to school. Traveling teachers sometimes taught them. Some were not educated at all. Women and girls cooked, gardened, sewed, and cleaned. Men and boys were vaqueros or cowboys. Men, women, and children were known for their skills with horses. With their trained horses and roping skills, vaqueros rounded up cattle on the ranchos. A day in the life on a rancho. Rancho life has a unique culture and is filled with hard work. Here are some things you'd see in a day-to-day life on a rancho. Young men and boys helped with everyday outdoor work on the rancho. Vaqueros wore tall boots for protection while working. Large rancho homes were made from adobe, which is moist clay bricks mixed with straw and dried in the sun. Colorful fans kept women and girls cool on hot days. Both men and women sat on leather saddles when riding on rancho horses. Now let's go ahead and fill in the last part of our graphic organizer for ranchos. Many people think that Kino helped start the ranching lifestyle. That can be our first detail. And then our second detail is that the huge ranchos were ideal for raising cattle and sheep, and they needed those lands to have a lot of grass to eat. Now for our summary, we can summarize all of the points that we talked about, and we can say that the Spanish impacted North America by setting up missions to spread their empire. Some Native Americans rebelled. However, the people working at the missions were also responsible for starting the rancho lifestyle. And this comes together to offer all of them a different type of lifestyle than what they had before the Spanish had arrived. Next, let's take a look at our writing sections. So the first part says define. What does impacted mean? So think about how we've used the word impacted throughout the reading and throughout the lesson. What do you think the word impacted mean? And then where it says write and cite evidence, how did the arrival of the Spanish impact North America? Use facts from the text to explain your responses. So here you need to use your text evidence. You need to pull examples from the reading to help support your answer. You can talk about how they changed the lives of Native Americans living there by spreading or forcing their beliefs, by trying to get them to join and work in the missions. You can talk about how that led to a lot of fighting between the Native Americans and the Spanish because the Spanish were taking over their lands and forcing a different lifestyle into them that they didn't want. You can talk about the Pueblo Revolt. You can talk about how the rancho lifestyle started and how the Spanish had taught Native Americans how to raise cattle. All of these things can be part of your answer. Where it says pull it together, how does the Southwest today show Spain's impact on North America? So you're going to list 3 different things here. And again, pull from the text. You can talk about the Spanish building their churches and their missions and how some of them are still around today. You can talk about the rancho lifestyle. You can talk about the language that's still very present in most of these cities as well. Make sure you're going through your answers very carefully, using complete sentences, checking your spelling and grammar and punctuation. And that takes us to the end of this lesson. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.